What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, feet, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode. There are so many veterans with the core strengths to become successful entrepreneurs and continue to make a huge positive impact on our country. Here we highlight the amazing successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Combat veterans for the purpose of this show are soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who have served in the United States in wars and in theater and on foreign soil or hostile waters. Our guest today is Mike Zacchea. Mike was a commissioned second lieutenant in the Marine Corps in 1990. He deployed to Somalia for Operation Restore Hope and to Haiti for Operation Support Democracy. In March 2004, as a major, he deployed to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom II. His team's mission was to build, train, and lead in combat the first Iraqi Army battalion trained by the U.S. military. The battalion participated in Operation Phantom Fury, the Second Battle of Fallujah. Mike's military awards include the Bronze Star Medal with Valor device, with Gold Star in lieu of Second Award, the Purple Heart, a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, a Combat Action Ribbon, and numerous unit and campaign awards. All right, Mike, welcome to the show, and thank you for being a guest.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you tell our loyal listeners all about your journey from a combat veteran to a successful entrepreneur. I just gave a very high-level view of your military experience, which, by the way, is very impressive. And is there any additional things you'd like to expand on that, or?
Well, the first thing I can tell you is that none of this was planned. It is a combination of opportunity and circumstance. I'm a big believer in access of opportunity. So a great deal of my career were opportunities that came my way, and I was in a position to take them, both in the military and subsequently in business and entrepreneurship. So I really think that developing an eye or a sense of opportunity is an important skill for people who are both in the military and transitioning out of the military.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. I absolutely agree that being able to capitalize on opportunity is important, because a lot of people, opportunity passes them by every day, and
yes.
they just don't even recognize it's there, or if they do recognize it's there, fear could be holding them back.
Really, again, a really great point. I think fear is the primary obstacle that people have when it comes to taking advantage of opportunities that might pop up. And I think it can be a very conscious fear about, well, what if I don't make enough money? What if I fail? That kind of thing. But I think it's also a lot to do with fear about their self-image. They have a certain self-image, and taking advantage of an opportunity might upset their self-image. Very, very few people think of themselves as entrepreneurs, and I know I did not. I thought that entrepreneurs were people in California who started computer companies. I didn't realize that, and I've come to believe that an entrepreneur is anybody who takes advantage of an opportunity to create value.
Yeah, that's a great point. Being able to create value is what being an entrepreneur is all about. And so it's not, do I have all of these business skills up front? Do I know exactly how I'm going to get from, point A to point Z with this company? I don't know how to manage, an HR department from a personnel and then maybe the financial perspective. As an entrepreneur, you really have that inherent desire for lifelong learning. So okay, I may not know it now, but I will know it, and that will help make me a better CEO, founder, president, whatever you categorize yourself as for your business as an owner and a founder. And so that's absolutely correct, that being able to add value is most important to any space that you want to build a business in.
One of the things that you said, I think is really important that I want to sort of break out, and that was talking about being a lifelong learner. For whatever reason, I've always conceived of myself as a lifelong learner, and the military encourages that. You continue to go to school, and you have professional military education opportunities, and there's a professional military reading program. So both by nature and nurture, I had a plan for lifelong learning. And I think that opportunity recognition comes out of the lifelong learning commitment. And it doesn't necessarily have to be formal. Many people start businesses having developed, been in an industry for many years, and then, they've gotten to know the industry, and they see a place where there's an opportunity where nobody else has done any work. And that's, I think, part of this lifelong learning curve that creates entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point that you made, that, you don't necessarily have to be formal. It doesn't have to be formal education. It doesn't mean go get another degree. Doesn't mean go get another certification. Self-development is, with the internet, we have so many resources at our fingertips. And then there's so many great books being written on, how to be an entrepreneur or how to do anything.
Right.
And so grabbing those and really implementing those in your life is huge.
So 2 points about what you just made, and they're great points, but the first one is, I run this program called the Entrepreneurial Bootcamp for veterans at Yukon. We're part of a nationwide consortium. We've been around now for 7 years, and there's absolutely no correlation between educational attainment and success in entrepreneurship. So we've had people who were high school dropouts, we've had people who had GEDs, we've had people who had AA degrees, and then we've also had medical doctors, veterinarians, lawyers, and PhDs. And learning to start and run a business is new to all of them, and they're all equally able to do it. There's absolutely no difference. Formal education, I think, really doesn't, is not a difference maker when it comes to starting a business. That's, and I'm speaking from, and I have a decent and statistically significant sample that I can speak from. But I find that one of the fascinating things that I have learned about entrepreneurship. The other thing I want to mention is, you talked about how many great resources there are. There are many, many great resources. And you talked about books. There's also blogs. There are communities of entrepreneurs. There's communities of angel investors. And it's really accessing these communities. And we know there's scholarship about this, that entrepreneurship is viral. It's catching. So people who are successful entrepreneurs are more likely to be friends or, be in a social community with other entrepreneurs than not. I think that there's a myth about an entrepreneur being, sort of a lone wolf working in, their basement or in their garage or something, but that's not how real entrepreneurship works.
Yeah, that's a great point, because, you can't do this type of thing alone as an entrepreneur. You need to surround yourself with a multitude of people, and people that, like you said, other entrepreneurs, those who have already been successful at building business, so that, they can help you, they can lift you up and help train you into those business things that you may not inherently know. And so,
right.
that's a great thought. So,
and
go ahead.
the other really important, this is why I'm a big believer in incubators and startup space and things like that, is market feedback from people with other skills, with different skills. I think that's a really necessary part of being an entrepreneur. And if you don't have that, you're doing an entrepreneur who doesn't have that is, I think, less likely to succeed than somebody who does.
Yeah, there's a lot of good entrepreneurial incubator programs that are popping up these days.
Yep.
Very influential. One I was just today talking to in just a general conversation, one of the executive directors for Bunker Labs, and so
Right.
very, very effective. It's amazing how quick that incubator program is growing in just the 2.5 years they've been around. He was telling me he's the executive director for the Raleigh group, and he was just telling me about the expansion that they have coming up for just in North Carolina area, and they're in many states, and so yeah, those are definitely helpful for veteran entrepreneurs for sure.
So you just touched on a issue which is sort of a paradox, and I don't quite understand it. I'm trying to figure it out, but so there is real pent-up demand for entrepreneurial training and entrepreneurial access, but at the same time, all the statistics and all the studies indicate that especially veteran entrepreneurship is declining compared to previous decades and previous generations of veterans. And it seems like there are more entrepreneurship opportunities than ever before in our history, but producing less entrepreneurs. And I haven't been able to figure that out.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, because that was part of the conversation I had today.
Yeah.
The individual was telling me that only 6% are becoming entrepreneurs right now.
Right.
And which is down significantly from, pre 9/11 days,
Right.
where the number was significantly higher and contributed to a large percentage of the GDP. But another alarming statistic that I didn't realize too, he was saying that 75% of the owners are 55 or older that are in that space now, and so it's going to leave even a bigger gap if we don't get more of the large number of transitioning veterans now into the entrepreneurial world.
Right. And the person who can figure out why this is if they could bottle that up and sell it, they'd be rich people, because it's a mystery. And there's so, especially going on the internet, it's so much easier now to form an LLC. It's so much easier now to access, as you mentioned, books about entrepreneurship, blogs about entrepreneurship, to access angel investors, to access people with the skills that you need to complement what you're trying to do. So yeah, it's a mystery, and I hope, and I know I can attest that just from the work that I do, that there is pent up demand, and I am not able to meet the demand for entrepreneurship training that people have. So I don't know where the breakdown is.
Yeah, so that's a great segue, Mike. So can you give our listeners a little bit of history on, the Yukon Entrepreneur Bootcamp that you founded for veterans with disabilities?
Sure, I'm happy to. And again, a set of unreproducible circumstances. I was medically retired from the Marine Corps, and I moved to Connecticut. And first job out of the Marine Corps I had was on Wall Street as an analyst working on a commodities trading desk, and probably was not a good fit for me. While I was in that job, I applied to and got accepted into the Yukon MBA program. So I went there eventually, and this is right around or in the aftermath of the market crash in 2008. I wound up leaving the job. I got fired, and so that was in August of 2009. I'm going into my second year of my MBA program, and fall semester I'm taking a class with a woman who has the unique position. She is both married to the dean of the Yukon School of Business, and she was on the dissertation board of the guy, Mike Haney, at Syracuse University, who started the first EBV program. And just in passing, they stayed in contact, and he told her, hey, I'm doing this great thing. It's really cool. It helps disabled veterans start businesses. And she said, oh my God, I have a guy in my class who would be great for that. He's a combat wounded Marine. He was medically retired, and I think he'd be great for it. So we did a case study. We discovered that New England, and this gets back to the lack of veteran entrepreneurship, but no veterans in New England had been through the program or had even applied. And obviously, New England is not underrepresented in the population of disabled veterans. So, we said, and this is what our value proposition was, we'll be the New England Center for Veteran Entrepreneurship. And we got buy-in from Syracuse University, from University of Connecticut, and from the Connecticut General Assembly. So that was in the fall of 2009. We started in January of 2010, had our first class in October of 2010, and we've been doing very well ever since. We're now in our 7th year. We've had 7 classes graduate, 157 people. We've started 117 businesses that have produced well over 300 jobs and more than $35 million in gross revenues. Our return on capital is about 17 to 1 or 17x. So we're very competitive in terms of the overall startup industry. But it's been a very successful program, and it's also spawned in our state a greater discussion about veterans workforce reentry and veteran entrepreneurship. And those attendant issues. We've been able to create, really since I started doing this work, in conjunction with a number of policy initiatives that we've taken, we've reduced veteran unemployment in our state. We were among the bottom 10 in the country. We're now tied for second best in the country. We've eliminated veteran structural homelessness. So that means, we don't have veterans who are long-term homeless or out of doors. There's a bed, there's a place for every veteran. We still have work to do, but we've come a long way in, 7 years at this point.
Yeah, those are 2 huge challenges that you mentioned. Reducing veteran unemployment, homelessness alone. It's not like you started with the low-hanging fruit and the small things. I mean, you guys have really, obviously, had an impact on 2 really big challenges that veterans face.
Part of the model that we developed is this concept called the Sea of Goodwill, and this is a paper that came out of the office of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 2008, I think it was, but basically it posits that a complete and reintegration of a veteran requires a number of things, which includes safe, secure, stable housing, access to mental health care, access to workforce reentry opportunities, and access to education opportunities. But they all have to happen almost at once, and that's the hard part. Mm-hmm. So if one thing is missing, the other things sort of start to fall apart. So I have come to a place now where I really believe that mental health care is the single biggest obstacle to accessing and having a accessing the workforce and being able to hold a job. And then everything sort of comes from that. If you're able to, get a house, if you're able to, or get a, live in an apartment, pay your bills, pay your rent. If you're able to take advantage of educational opportunities, so it's very, very difficult to get a job if you don't have a mailing address, or if you don't have a bank, for that matter. And it's very difficult to have a bank account if you don't have an address. So all these things wind up being connected.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think people see them as independent, right? That
Right.
these, if I work on this for now, then next I'll work on that. But yeah, it's a great point. You really need to be doing these things in parallel, so that when it all comes together, it's literally all together. It's not, well, I kind of have this, but now I can't get that because I've been so focused on the one aspect. So
Right.
yeah,
And
that's
there's one other piece of this, and this is the use of credit checks for people to both get a job and get into, a housing situation. So the credit check, especially for people who have been either jobless for a period of time or homeless for a period of time, becomes a real barrier to re-entering the workforce, and that creates what I call a poverty trap that we're trying to break out of. So you're exactly correct. There are legal structural issues that prevent these things, which are completely policy driven, and we can do better.
right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mike, we're gonna go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'd love to get into the books that you've written and the book that you have coming out. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Hey, we are back with Mike Zacchea talking about this amazing entrepreneurial path he's been on after his quite impressive military career. And so Mike has obviously been having quite an positive impact on our veteran community for some time now with the business that he's founded and all the work that he has done in the community utilizing his combat military experience. And so, not to move away too much from his entrepreneurial experience, but one amazing thing that he's been doing as well is he's the author of several books. And on top of that, he has a new one coming out. And I'd like Mike to kind of give us some background on some of the resources that you've put together and are out there now, and then kind of give us a quick synopsis of what's coming, because it's kind of exciting, the new book you have coming out.
Thanks. And yes. Again, circumstances and opportunity. So one of the first classes I took in my MBA program was a business law class, and as it turns out, the professor that I had, his sister's daughter's son was killed in Iraq. So, his grandnephew, I guess. So we had a connection over that. And he gave me a number of extracurricular assignments to read about, especially the legal structure of the original Veterans Readjustment Bill, the GI Bill from World War II. And I got very deep into the history of veterans benefits and laws regarding veterans benefits, going back to the Revolutionary War. So that class really gave me a significant foundation in the legal issues with veterans benefits and the history of veterans organizations that have fought for veterans benefits. I wrote I guess I would call a major paper about that, and did a lot of academic reading about these laws. One of the amazing things that I discovered is that the very first bill passed by the Continental Congress included a veterans disability pension for soldiers of the Revolutionary Army who were wounded in combat and unable to work. So, to me, this goes to the very heart, the very foundation of our nation at its inception in 1776. So, I wrote that paper, and then a couple of years later, after I started the EBV program, I was recommended to somebody who's writing a book about veterans healing and advocacy. And they asked me if I would be willing to write a chapter for the book. It's a two-part book. One is called War Trauma in Its Wake, and the other part is called Expanding the Circle of Healing. And I wrote a chapter for that about veterans advocacy, and creating better outcomes for veterans through advocacy. So that was my first opportunity. The second opportunity I had, I should mention, I also was taking or participating in the NYU Veterans Writers Symposium. I did that for 2 years. When I retired, I did that in 2007 and 2008. So I was definitely writing at that point. A year later, I had an opportunity to expand more about veterans benefits and entrepreneurship, and I wrote a chapter in a book called Social Entrepreneurship Catalyst about veterans entrepreneurship. So all the while, I had been working on the book that I have coming out now called The Ragged Edge. It originated in my cognitive behavioral therapy for treating for post-traumatic stress. And in 2008, again, the year I started at Yukon, I met and started working with my co-author, who is now the senior editor at CNBC, on this book. And part of one of the challenges about writing this book, The Ragged Edge, was that events in Iraq were changing so constantly. And I always had the feeling that the whole story was not yet finished, and I couldn't finish it until everything was finished. And that didn't really happen until the summer of 2014, really January of 2014, ISIS retook Fallujah. So that was a real sort of blow for everybody who had fought there. And then 6 months later, ISIS took Mosul. And my dear friend, an Iraqi friend of mine, he survived, and he lived in Mosul, but he survived, but his brother did not, and he contacted me about that. And by then it seemed like we had come full circle, and I could tell the narrative from beginning to end. So that gave us a narrative endpoint for the book, and so we finished the book and got an editor, or got a publisher, and at this point the publication process, by April it will have been about 18 months that we've been working on publishing the book, not just writing it, but publishing it.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a lengthy time, because this is kind of important information for veterans to be able to get on a timely basis. And had you ever considered doing self-publishing, or do you think that doesn't have the credibility that going through a formal publishing company would?
Ted and I had talked. Ted is my co-author. Ted and I had talked about it, but he was adamantly against that. He is a serious journalist. He has a big job at CNBC, and he, thought that there's just no way that professionally he was going to self-publish.
Right. Yeah, with that background is probably
right.
Like taboo.
Yes, correct. I mean, he's got 2 master's degrees one is in journalism and the other is in either creative writing or fine arts or something like that. But he just was not going to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it just seems like there's a lot of, potentially great material out there that people write, and because they can't get a formal publishing company to sign off on it or take a chance on it, a lot of times it may not even make it out there for veterans to use, and it's a shame it dies somewhere in somebody's inbox, and so.
Well, one of the frustrating things is that while we were writing, and we put out a lot of inquiries and made a few submissions, but we kept getting told the same thing: is that one, this is a project that deserves to be published, but it's not right for us, or two, the market is flooded with Iraq memoirs, and it will just get lost in the noise. But virtually every month I'm seeing another book about Iraq coming out. So I'm like, why are these people publishing a book, but everybody else is telling me that the market is saturated? So really, though, it was a matter of being patient and finding a publisher, and in our case, it was Chicago Review Press, who understood the project, understood what we were trying to say, and really believed in it. And one of the things I learned, and this is really fascinating, writing a book and getting it published is very much like starting a business. And when you do the book proposal, it's almost like doing a marketing plan. And that's really what publishers want to see, is how are you going to sell this book? And how am I going to make money off of it? Yep. So, it has to be, they're basically giving you that, okay, this is going to be a well-written book, and, it's going to achieve a certain, level of readability, but how do we make money? How do we distinguish it from the thousands and thousands of other books that are published every year? And how do we get this book into the hands of a reader? So, actually, my entrepreneurship background helped me in developing a book proposal and marketing plan for the book. So that's a very, very interesting crossover of skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's interesting for our listeners to hear, because it just, again, highlights the importance of these entrepreneurial skills and what you can really do with them and how you can really leverage it to build a successful future.
Yes, I'm at a point now, and I guess I've evolved in my thinking where, for me, entrepreneurial skills are the 21st century difference-making skills for any adult, whether veteran or not, entering into the workforce.
Yes. Yeah, great point. So, Mike, this has been an amazing conversation, and as we're running to the end of our time here, I'd like to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know how they can get in contact with you and any information you'd like to pass on at this time.
Sure. So the name of the book is The Ragged Edge, a U.S. Marines account of leaving the Iraqi Army 5th Battalion. We have a website. It's called theraggededgebook.com. We're also on Facebook, and we're on Twitter. Again, the Facebook is The Ragged Edge Book, and Twitter is @The Ragged Edge Book. And I can be contacted through any of those means. Or we have an email for the book, so if you want to contact us that way, or we'll respond on Facebook or Twitter.
Okay, great, awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!